Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to JFD Traders Tea Time with me, Darius Anucauskas. Today is the 20th of November 2019, so welcome everyone. Welcome to this Wednesday's afternoon session where we're going to have a quick look at the markets, a few of the charts. We'll have a look at what's happening with them right now. But before we do that, as always, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. The content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation, should not be considered as such, and does not in any way constitute an invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. As always, a few seconds for you to read the rest and we can continue. Okay, also, just before we jump into the charts, quick mentioning of our JFD YouTube channel here, to which you can always subscribe to in order not to miss any of our upcoming videos, and of course our JFD Bank website, and specifically our JFD research page, which we also update on a daily basis, and I believe you can find a lot of useful stuff here for yourselves. So yep, feel free to visit us here on jfdbank.com and click on the tab on the top, research. Yep, so right, now then guys, let's quickly jump into the charts. Now the first one I want to touch on here is the S&P 500. Now looking at this index, yesterday it sold off a little bit here, I would say, and but nevertheless it still remains above this this short-term a bit of a tentative one upside support line taken from the low of the 3rd of October. Now as long as it remains above this line, we cannot really talk about any downside yet, at least even in the short run, because for us to get excited about lower levels, ideally we would like to see a drop below the 3,100 zone, 102 maybe, roughly around here. That's basically marked by the high of the 12th of November. So in a way, if you can keep an eye on the 3,100 level, if we see a drop below this would in a way could also place the price below its 21 EMA here on the 4-hour chart, and then we could target lower areas. Until then, until it's trading above this upside line, we cannot really talk about any downside. But even with the upside, for us, to be honest, at this point in time, given that the index is quite overstretched to the upside, even in the short run, or actually not even in the short run, but in the short run, for now, we will remain kind of cautious here with the upside, because ideally we would like to see a push above the recent highs, or should I say yesterday's highs, near the 3,127 zone. And this way we could then aim for higher levels. Until then, until it's going to be trading, let's say, inside this little kind of area, or we could even maybe call it a triangle, little triangle here, but not really a triangle. But anyway, so as long as it's going to remain in this little area right here, we are going to we will stay neutral, and we're going to keep an eye on the potential breakout points. So on the upside for us is going to be the 3,127 zone. On the downside, it's the 3,100 level. So let's keep an eye on that one. Silver. Haven't looked at silver for quite a while now, and looking at this picture overall, you can see that it's still trading below its little kind of downside resistance line. This short-term tentative, a bit of a tentative, yes, downside resistance line taken from the high of the 4th of September. So in a way, overall, yes, it is kind of in a way is within a downtrend still, but from the shorter term perspective, and let me just zoom in on this one. So it is kind of trying to climb higher up, but as you can see right now, it's kind of taking a bit of a hit here. Don't get me wrong, yes, it could maybe drift a little bit lower, but in a way, as long as it stays above this this tentative upside line, because in a way that's the only thing that we can actually draw right now here, as long as it remains inside this above this upside support line, we will continue maybe aiming to the upside. But if it starts dropping below this, then yep, we will consider a possible move lower. Now also something that you might draw here is a potential kind of rising channel here. So in a way, you could keep an eye on that one. So for now, you can see that everything's kind of working out nicely if we consider this idea, because in a way it's now correcting a little bit lower. It might correct even further down, but as long as it remains let's say inside this channel, as long as it remains above the lower bound of this rising channel, then everything is kind of leaning more towards the upside in the short run. I'm talking because still we are below this downside resistance line here. So that's why, guys, for now, even if we see a further move lower, this could be part of a correction before another leg of buying. So let's keep an eye on this one. Quite interesting developments here. Don't get me wrong, if this suddenly starts breaking the upper side of the channel here, and if it starts drifting higher, then yes, we ignore the whole channel idea here in general. So but for now, as long as it kind of respects the boundaries of this formation, we'll keep that in mind. USDCHF very quickly on this one, so popping nicely to the upside, so also a nice upside channel here that we've got ourselves in with USDCHF. So as you can see, lately, after kind of revisiting the lower bound of the rising channel here, it started pushing higher again. It is drifting to the upside. Today it managed to break this barrier right here. Let me just quickly put this one on the chart. This one right here near the 0.9919 level, roughly around here. So it managed to pop above it, and look how well the R2 was tested today, and how well it held the rate lower. So in a way, if we also consider this to be a nice rising channel, and which we are doing that right now, this in a way could continue drifting higher. The only thing is, of course, keep your eyes on the potential maybe reversal. We do have the FOMC minutes coming out today, so maybe we could see a bit of movement here. But for now, as if we take it as it is, for now it's trying to push further north. Let's see if it can do that. For now, we are more bullish than bearish on this one, given that it also managed to break this key area of resistance near the 0.9919 level. But if it starts overcoming the R2, then yep, the path is kind of open towards slightly higher levels. Initially, we'll target this 0.996465 level. But if that fails to withhold, we do have the high of November, the current highest point of November, and that's roughly around the 0.9979 level. So good potential target as well. But again, in order for us to get comfortable with higher levels, ideally we would like to see a push above the today's R2, which is roughly around the 0.9937 level. And if we get a nice push above this, then yep, this is kind of opening the path towards these higher levels. In terms of the downside, now, in a way, from the very short term perspective, you could keep an eye on this little level right here near the 0.9892 zone. So if it drops below this, then in a way it increases the chances of a further drift lower. But this is the thing, that the downside could get limited near this lower bound of the rising channel. So in a way, as you follow my idea now, in order to get really comfortable with lower areas, a drop below the lower initially a drop below the lower bound of the rising channel, and then a drop below the 0.9862 level would be required, because until then, any kind of move lower could still be considered as a temporary correction. But if it starts dropping below the lower side of the channel here, and starts dropping below the 0.9862 level, then this is where it could become a little bit more exciting for these sellers. So let's keep an eye on this one, guys. But as I said, for now, as long as it stays in this rising channel pattern, we will continue targeting the upside, unless something triggers it, something that triggers the reversal from the fundamental side. So yep, keep your eyes on the news today as well, guys, later on. So let's see how this is going to play out. Excuse me, GBPNZD. Haven't looked at this one for quite a while. So overall, yes, we are within an uptrend, trading above this medium-term upside support line taken from the low of the 30th of July. But since around the end of October, the pair is kind of stuck here in some sideways activity, and in a way, what could happen here, and in a way what we could see here happening is basically this one continuing to move sideways, automatically testing the upside line, and this is where probably all the kind of the action could start. This is where all the excitement could be, because if it respects the upside line, then we could see a nice push higher again. We could see this one drifting to the upside. The only thing is that for us to now get excited about higher levels, ideally we would like to see a push above this barrier right here, and that's near the 2.0325 mark, roughly around here, guys. So if we get a nice push above this, then yes, we will aim for the upside. And to be honest, ideally we would like to see a daily close above this, a daily candle closing above this, but we will start considering higher levels if we get a 4-hour candle close. Don't get me wrong, it could reverse this. The next 4-hour candle could straight away reverse back inside inside this little range again. But again, at least this could give a bit of a hint here for the bulls, maybe to join in, and maybe we could see more buyers coming in here. But again, we need to see a nice, good, strong move above this 2.0325 level first, before we could examine higher levels. But even then, we should be very careful still, because in a way the pair could travel towards this 2.0559 level here, which is the highest point of October, and in a way it could stall around here for a while, and then we'll have to just take it from there, guys. For now, this is how we're going to play the upside. All this territory for us is a bit of a neutral one, because as you can see, and history shows, that it continues to move sideways, and it's really sometimes difficult to catch, or I should say difficult to understand exactly where it wants to go. But again, let's not exclude a possibility here that we could end up just moving sideways for a while now, and maybe even just an idea, rough idea, maybe even going sideways up until the UK elections. That's on the 12th of December. But again, that's a bit of speculation. Maybe we'll have something earlier that could trigger the exit here. So in a way, with the downside, we need to see a drop below this upside line, and only then we will target lower areas. For now, it's not the case. It's just moving sideways. GBPUSD, this is something that what else I wanted to quickly show you. That GBPUSD, similar kind of story here, but a little bit more exciting here, because yes, it is still struggling to overcome this 1.3013 level, which is the highest point of October, but from the very short term perspective, we are trading above this upside support line, as you can see here. Let me just zoom in. Now, this upside support line is taken from the low of the 8th of November, so as long as you can see, the rate continues to respect this line. Today, we already had a test of this line, and of course, the big question here is, can this continue pushing higher? Now then, of course, this will be very interesting to see, because it might be moving, well, it is actually overall it's moving sideways here. So in a way, maybe we could see a push push higher again here. The only thing is that for us, to be honest, we are keeping a close eye on this one, but it's very difficult to find a good trade here. In a way, if it pushes higher above this 21 EMA here on the 4-hour chart, yes, maybe it could have a chance to push higher again. But as you can see, we did have something similar here as well. We did move higher. We almost managed to reach our target here near the 1.3013, but kind of failed to do that, and reversed back to the downside. So in a way, from the very short-term perspective, probably the downside looks a little bit more attractive, because if we get a break of this upside line and a drop below the 1.2866 zone, now this is where we could maybe target some slightly lower areas. And for example, a good one to watch could be around the 1.2767 mark, which is the low of the 8th of November. Also, this level coincides with the 200 EMA on the 4-hour chart. So basically, there are some interesting levels here underneath. With the upside, we'll take a very conservative approach and just wait for a push above this 1.3013 level, and only then we will target higher areas. Until then, we're just going to continue observing this one. But as I said, if it starts dropping below the 1.2866 zone, then yep, we will aim for lower areas. But if this area here, the 1.27 1.2767 level starts breaking. Now this is where it could become a little bit interesting, because the pair could start falling again, or should I say further, and we could maybe even revisit this upside support line. This upside support line which is running here from the low of the 3rd of September. A bit of a tentative one, I do understand that, only 2 touches, but nevertheless, something that we would consider if we would get a drop below the 1.2767 level. So let's keep an eye on this one, guys. Let's see how this is going to play out. But the main focus here right now, probably from the very, very short-term perspective, could be this upside support line. So let's keep an eye on that one. EURCAD, so also is inside a nice rising channel pattern. So for now, guys, we're going to continue observing this one. It's quite interesting. We did have some Canadian figures coming out today, so inflation figures, which kind of stayed, well, actually came out as expected. So the Canadian dollar strengthened a little bit on that. So we saw that that initial drop. This morning, the pair started climbing higher together with other Canadian pairs, where the Canadian dollar is not the base one. So in this situation here as well, so we had a nice push higher. It almost kind of managed to travel to the upper bound of the rising channel, but as you can see, it kind of failed and then started selling off. The only thing is that this little sell-off could be seen as a temporary correction, and in a way, how we could play this one out is, as long as it stays above this this barrier right here at 1.4655 zone, as long as it remains above it, then it kind of has still some chance to push higher, maybe, and again we will target the upper bound of the rising channel. This rising channel is, by the way, taken from the kind of around the end of September, so you can draw it on your own charts. So keep your eyes on this one. If this, of course, starts dropping below the 1.4655 mark, now this is where probably we could maybe consider a correction here, a larger correction to the downside, maybe even aiming for the lower bound of the rising channel. So also don't forget that the reason why we're looking at this level right here, roughly, because we do have a little tentative upside line here. So we'll keep an eye on this one. So in a way, by the time probably could drift lower here, it could start breaking this 1.4655, and then if it breaks below this upside line as well, this is where it could become a little bit more interesting for the sellers, but only in the short run. And the last pair for this session is going to be euro dollar. Still not much happening here, and this is what I talked about this morning. As long as it kind of stays in this little territory right here, we're going to remain neutral, because for us to consider maybe a bit of a decline here in the short run, we would need to see a drop below the 1.1043 level. And in terms of the upside, to get comfortable with the slightly higher levels, a push above the 1.1093 level would be required. But only then, but even then, we would only target the 1.1140 mark here. But after that, we would just take it from there, see what he wants to do after. But again, until we're kind of stuck here, we're not doing anything here. We're just continuing observing the price action. As you can see, the bulls are really fighting it hard and trying their best to keep the rate above the 200 EMA here on the 4-hour chart, but let's see if they can actually do that. For now, guys, just keep an eye on these potential 2 breakout points, and then we will aim for a further directional move, a short-term directional move. So then, okay guys, I really hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for sticking around and watching it till the end. If you want to join me tomorrow morning, as always, at my Traders Espresso, that's 7 o'clock GMT time. For now, guys, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, have your stop losses in place, be very careful, and let's see how what the market brings us tomorrow. Please join me, like I said, at my Traders Espresso, 7 o'clock GMT. But for now, thank you very much, and bye-bye.